Hello and welcome back to Storytime with Mary's Child Development Series. You know, we're absolutely loving our conversations with Baba Dazi, who is a clinical psychologist from Hearts and Minds Aloud. Hi, Baba, how are you?
Hello, Mary. I'm very well, thank you. It's good to see you.
Oh, it's great to see you too. And, you know, we've been speaking for a while now, and, you know, during this coronavirus lockdown and, you know, the ups and downs with coronavirus. And if I'm honest with you, I'm getting so fatigued with it all.
Yeah.
It's been going on for a little bit longer than I anticipated. And I'm pretty sure my kids are fed up as well. And I'm sure everyone else's kids are too. So in the UK, kids have gone back to school. They're having to, you know, be in smaller class bubbles and not being able to interact with all the children in school. And we've gone back into lockdown, which is frustrating, but expected. And that means that kids are not allowed to have play dates at home and stuff. So they are getting a bit fed up. So I wanted to check, do you have any tips for us to assess our children's mental well-being?
Thank you, Mary. And you're right about the coronavirus feeling like it's dragging. Yeah, it's taking a toll on everybody, keeping with the external protocols, but also making sure that we keep our mental health in check, because we know that that's been impacted very much, you know, for adults and for children as well, who can't always express what they're feeling. So a big part of what adults will have to do is observation. I think that's the biggest tip, you know, knowing who your child is. And this is to say that you've probably, or this presupposes that you had observed your child prior to the virus, so you know who they are, you know what they like, you know what is characteristic of them. So if you see any deviations in their behavior, any signs of aggression, for example, or, you know, withdrawal, you know, persistent sadness, or talks about morbid things, maybe that seem a bit serious, like, you know, taking their life, and indicative of, you know, low mood or a deviation from who they usually are, you would want to pay attention to that. And of course, once you've observed, you want to talk to them, because to a large extent, children are honest, you know, and they will give you cues and some clues as to what's going on with them. And if you feel like there's whatever they say or do gives room for concern, it's always good to talk to a professional or somebody who's able to decipher these things. So yes, observation is the first step, and then going ahead to communicate with them openly is also a great way of assessing where they are mentally.
Thanks, Barbara. That's all very serious,
I
which
know.
is a serious situation, of course. But do you have any tips for us parents to intentionally check on our children's mental health and their mental well-being?
Well, yes, Mary, again, it goes back to observation, but you could do that in, you know, in a very, well, like you say, maybe a less serious way, which would be maybe engaging in activities with them. Okay, so engaging in activities that would normally boost their mental well-being, you know, exercising, playing outside, playing inside, just basically engaging them in activities that stimulate them mentally. And then you can gauge or observe their response to that. That should tell you where they are at, you know. If there's anything that's impeding their engagement, then you want to listen to and address that with them.
That makes a lot of sense. And do you have any remedies for, you know, lifting their mood or helping them to keep them in good spirits?
Well, okay, so I mean, listening to and engaging with them, talking to them is a very good way, because for most of us, I think to a large extent, we are our children's first friend. I don't know if you agree, especially for mothers and for fathers as well. You're your child's first friend. So you would, I guess, always have to reach out for that friendship at one point or another, and engage them, listen to them, you know, try to come to their level as much as you can. Participate in the activities that they consider fun. Okay, and then also we've talked about new learning and new adventures as well. So it doesn't always have to be things that they've done before, but if you can think of new things, innovative activities to for them to participate in, that would be very helpful as well. Okay, and I know that this gets difficult, trying to get your children to interact, because we know that social interaction is a good remedy or good antidote for mental health, some mental health difficulties. And during this period, it's not the easiest thing to do, but it's good to make use of whatever modalities that are available now to encourage social interaction. So video calls are a good example. So if your child, while the lockdown is on, if your child can't visit or your child can't have friends visiting, you can encourage interaction via video call as much as possible. I think that's a temporary measure until interaction resumes as we've usually known it. So these are some of the few things that we can do to help children.
No, brilliant. That makes sense. And we've been having quite a few video calls with our friends recently as well, which I think has helped a lot, because they can't see their friends at the moment. A few years ago, actually quite a few years ago now, somebody said to me that happiness is a decision. And that quote has really, really, really stuck with me. And I kind of live and breathe by it, because it really is a decision. I mean, I know it's not a decision for everybody, but you can choose to be happy. What do you think of that quote?
I like that you mentioned that it's not a decision for everybody. I think that it's a desire for everybody, but like you mentioned, it's not a decision for everybody, because there are people who would actively like to make that decision. There are others, there are things that, however, there are things that may impede, them being able to access that happiness immediately, like other people would. Okay, so we know that there are biological implications to a person being happy or staying happy. Not to be too detailed, but if you think about depressivity, you know that it doesn't just have to be willing yourself. It doesn't just have to do with willing yourself to be happy. However, we know that there's also a big case for being intentional, or about keeping a good attitude or keeping a positive attitude. So there are things that you can do. Okay, so for some people it might take longer to get there, but when you know things so we talk about self-care, for example, the sorts of things that you need to do to keep you in a better mental space. Okay, so even if you find that it's harder for you to have that sense of happiness or lightness as other people would, the things that are your triggers, you try to stay away from them, and the things that make you feel good, to use a term loosely, and then you focus on that. So it can be a decision in that you can be intentional about the things you do to make you happy. It comes easier to some people, but if you realize that it doesn't come as easy to you, I think the important thing is to stay consistent in doing the things that bring you happiness, so that eventually, that you will get there.
Thanks, Barbara. And you're completely right. Happiness is not a decision for everybody, but there is definitely something to be said about being intentional about being happy and wanting and willing yourself to be happy, especially in these times of doom and gloom and coronavirus. But I hope we spread a bit of cheer for you guys. And Barbara, is there anything you want to add before we go?
Well, I'll just add, Mary, that I know that it's a difficult time and it still feels uncertain, because we felt like we were out of lockdown, things were getting better, and then there's a lockdown again, so it feels uncertain. But like we're saying, we can be intentional about doing the things that sustain or can keep us in high spirits as much as possible. And I guess that's the only thing that can get us through this difficult period, because we will definitely get through it. And maybe we could talk about it. When we do talk about it, we might have a smile on our faces. Who knows?
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Barbara. It's always great chatting to you as usual. And we'll catch up next time.
Bye.